Yo, JD here, Tyrannimus, and it's been a little while since we have done some F1 2020 gameplay, and today we have decided to go against the 110% AI in a Williams, which I don't think I've done too many times on this game. I know I've done it many times with other cars, and actually ran this track in 2019 where it was almost nearly impossible to beat the 110 AI in a Mercedes. So the Williams in 2020 settings is a very, very slow and difficult car to drive. So we are just going to do our best here. Watching some other people's videos with the Williams against 110 AI, it's almost nearly impossible to win or even get a podium. So really have to drive the rails of this, and we're actually going to be using the setup I used in my last league race around France, 2.7 wings with 50-53 differential transmission, right triple left geometry, and the suspension is 1.9, 110, 6.3 ride height, which gives you insane straight line speed, 150 brakes as usual, and the tyre pressures, surprise surprise, is going to be minimum for that maximum mechanical grip. So we're deploying the full setup as I would do for a league race. This is the exact setup I used when I last did a race around here, where I sadly got a puncture, I think on the last sector of the last lap. Would have come P2 that day, but we got P3 in the end. And this car, the Williams, you can already see the thing it lacks is just overall grip. It just slides around, it just doesn't have any downforce. Straight line speed is not too bad, and you're probably a little bit surprised at the setup I'm running. Around this track, I really do feel straight line speeds is a big priority. You want a car that rotates, but is also stable on the rear end. Hence why we used the 1.9 suspension at the top of the setup. And 6.3 will provide a bit more of a stable car. Much better in the straight line. And it's just pure straight line speed, because you can see against this AI, the acceleration they have, I think, is a little bit unnatural out of the corners. It's just absolutely crazy, and there are corners where you do drive faster than the AI. They seem to have some corners where they're very, very slow on other tracks, but this track here, they seem to be pretty competitive everywhere as they were on the previous game. So we are just doing our best. You can see we're currently in P13 on this one-shot qualifying. Into P12, are we going to stay P12? No, we don't. We go back to P13, which is not a bad effort. This attempt, I think, in total I've done 2 attempts, so this was my second one I did. So I didn't really do this for too long, and I haven't played this game for a while. Definitely feels a bit rusty, me getting back into it, but France, as many people know, is one of my favourite tracks to drive on the Formula 1 game. Real life doesn't offer that much excitement, but I hope it does this weekend, considering how close the cars are. And you can see the only change I made was change the differential to 50-54, so when you're going off throttle, it's just a little bit more stable. But we've got 4 lights, 5 lights here, and as they go out now, trying to get a good start, we're going to try and be fair with this AI. I see a lot of people just dive down the inside like a kamikaze, but going into here, we sort of do the same thing. Actually tap the back of Ocon there, but we made up some positions, but we're just trying to not take the mick, because as I said, you can quite easily go from 20th to 10th when they bunch up. Like going to this corner, this right-hander, I could have gone down the inside of Ricciardo there if I really wanted to, but we're going to try and take advantage, but not take the full mick of how the AI system works. But speaking of the AI system, you can just see the acceleration they have coming off some of the corners, especially turn 6, this left-hander going onto the main straight is just absolutely out of this world, and seems to be that they just don't run out of ERS, or but I'm pretty convinced that it's not even achievable. Even if you had the same setup as them and you're deploying the ERS, you just cannot accelerate that far. So that's also the reason why I've decided to stick with pretty much my league racing setup around here, is that when I raced down here, it wasn't as good on tyres, because the lower downforce you run, the more it slides around and the worse your tyre wear and tyre temps get. A lot of people don't realise with high downforce, yes, you're not going to be as fast in a straight line, and yeah, you will be quicker through the corners, but you will actually save more tyre wear because the car is not sliding around as much. Although people seem to think that going faster through the corners is going to have the opposite effect. I can tell you that is not the case on this game. So definitely something to keep in mind here. So as the AI is so fast in a straight line, and quite often we are like going through corners such as these corners, we are definitely faster than the AI, but it's on the exit of this corner and you can just see the acceleration they have coming off here is just, it's just absolutely nuts. And now we're going to have to defend from Perez as Hamilton has actually gone out of the race, so that has gifted us one free position. So we have to outbrake the Racing Point, now the Aston Martin, going into chicane, which I really do enjoy. The chicane had to take a lot of track on the entry, and a lot of people like to take curb through the right hand part or miss it, I say. And for me, I definitely feel you need to hit it. And going through this video, you can see already it's a bit of a long video because we do show most of the racing, so let me know if you enjoy this, and if you have any questions about the setup that I'm running, about this gameplay, F1 2020 or even F1 2021, because I've seen a lot of gameplay, a lot of footage of that, which I'm really looking forward to playing. So anything you want to ask me, I will try to respond down in the comments below. But going to turn 1, this is one of the corners again. Well, on the exit, you're definitely faster than AI. Now, I say it's through these sequence of corners is where you make up the most amount of time here. So what we go do here, can't afford to sit behind it for too long. So now we decide to go down the inside. Make sure you have your front wheels along their front wheels, because then you will avoid getting any damage. So in real life, someone probably wouldn't have gone for something like that, but you can see here that against this 110 AI, we are definitely needing to do that in order to make up some positions, as Sainz and Albon are now going side by side. We're going against another Racing Point here, and you can see straight away again that the straight line speed is just absolutely insane from this AI. So Sainz goes a bit defensive through his long right hander again, which is another one of those corners where he could really make up, but as you can see, almost losing the car. So the tyres are starting to go off a dirty air. This left hander, one of my other favourite corners on the game. You can take many different lines. You can either go very wide and expose yourself on the inside, but then get a better exit, or you can go super tight where you protect yourself from people from behind, but then you kind of compromise your exit, as we're trying to get past Stroll here. So the AI is going defensive. Let's see what we can do. Could go around the outside here to get the inside for the right-hander, and that is now up into 5th place in this race. Something you definitely want to watch out for. When they go defensive, they will go very slow on the apex, so that will always give you an opportunity to try and outbrake them and outdrive them around the outside. But going back to that long left-hander, you can either go wide and get a good exit, or you can go very tight, which usually results in you not losing the car as much, which is why a lot of people do that, because it's a very, very unstable corner for the rear end. And when we go through it, I'll show you the line that I typically take, which is more of a neutral line, where you're in around the middle of the corner, where you get the best of both worlds, I feel, in my opinion. So you can see here, this is the right-hander. Sainz actually glitches a little bit, which is a little bit worrying, but you can see going to here, it looks like we initially do go out wide, but not super out wide, about middle of the corner here. Because overall, I feel it's probably the safest way to attack that corner, where you don't leave yourself defenseless and you don't lose too much time. Second gear and then third gear once you hit the apex, going into the DRS straight here, and just trying to save as much ERS as possible at this stage of the race. And it always seems to be the AI are very, very strong at the start of the lap, but then towards the end of the lap they seem to use all of their ERS. So you can see leaders of, I believe it's Verstappen and now Bottas, since Hamilton is out of this race. They're quite a way up the road, and you can see Albon is in P3, so we are actually in contention to get a podium in a Williams against 110 AI, which I don't think is the easiest thing to do in the world, because this AI is just very, very unnatural, as I said, and especially with this car, it's not oversteery, but it's just a lack of overall grip. It just doesn't have much grip overall here, as I believe Sainz is now going to go into the pits. They actually cut the pit lane entry, unless that is the right way to do it. First gear this time, because we're starting to generate a little bit more understeer using the DRS advantage. You can see Bottas has stayed out, Albon is stayed out as well, and let's see what that gap is towards the end of the race here. So we come towards the end of lap 6. We're deciding we're going to pit on this lap. You can see the gap has maintained to Bottas, and we've actually gained a little bit of time, so we're going to try and stick with the pit entry. And the other thing as well is that the AI always nail the pit entry, where they get it to the exact miles per hour, which when you're racing, especially if you're doing a league race, I always advise to, unless you really have to and it's life or death, then always leave about 5 to 10 mile an hour on the table when you're coming into the pits. But coming through here, we are not going to be released straight away, because we had the Mercedes of Bottas and Albon coming out, and this is one of the annoying things about this game. It does hold you for a little bit longer than it needs to, and that has resulted in us losing a fair amount of time. Sainz has actually jumped everyone, and now we are, I believe, in a net P7 in this train here, and now we're going to have to overtake Stroll and Ricciardo once again, which is not going to be the easiest thing in the world, because we do only have about 47% of the ERS available to us. And you can see again off this corner, the left-hander, they are an absolute rocket ship coming up here, and now we're coming under attack from Ocon, and whenever the AI get close to you, they will attack you very, very quickly. So we're going to have to do outbreak once again, just trying to make sure we don't have any contact to him. Hooking the inside of that curb, something I feel is very, very important. And I saw today in real life that a lot of drivers choose not to do that on the inside. I think Bottas definitely does when he does his laps here. Right now, in this one, I have to really focus on trying to get back in the DRS zone, because if I lose the DRS zone, there's definitely a chance that I could not get back in within it again. So, see, we're about 7 tenths to Stroll up ahead. The detection point is actually here. It's not going through the last corner. It's going through the penultimate corner, and you can see we're quite a bit close enough to get the DRS. We're not going to use any going down this main straight, because we already have it. So we're just going to try and save as much as we can. And you can see we are in a net P7 now, with the leaders of, I think Verstappen is way out in the lead here. And I think Bottas is trying to fight for P2, I think. You can see Verstappen is miles out in front, but through these corners again, we get our first track limit warning. So one more of those, and, oh sorry, 2 more of those, and then we will get a 3-second time penalty, because we are playing with the strict rules. You saw settings at the start of this video. Surface temperatures are on, so this is exactly as it would be if you were racing online. And let me know how you find this up if you decide to use it, because I feel it's very, very good for career mode as well. You just definitely need the straight line speed around here. And if you also want to try my wheel settings, then they should be down in the description as well, along with the wheel I'm using, so feel free to try it out yourself. But you can see Albon's actually been overtaken by Stroll and Ricciardo because he's actually on hard tyres. So the game has decided to do that for him, which I don't know why. That seems to be quite a common thing where the AI do some very, very strange things. But see, we're trying to get a good exit. He's going to be quite slow, and you can see we definitely get a very good exit. Are we going to use any of the overtake button? I don't think we are, because we are so close in the stretching. He goes defensive once again. Can we do the same thing as we did to Stroll before? No, we can't. So we have to let him have this corner. Let's see if we can go for the switchback, and we are not going to be faster because you can see the acceleration once again is pretty ridiculous. So I think we're going to maybe try what we did on Ricciardo, because we're really going to have to overtake him. So make sure we get our front wheels along his front wheels, just so we don't get any damage, and we just about do that. We don't cost him that much time in the consequence, and he's not going to be close enough to launch an attack. So I really want to try and get a podium in this race here, but we got held for so long in the pits. It's going to be very difficult to do that, as Bottas has now actually overtaken Sainz now. So I want to try and get on the back of them as quick as I possibly can, making sure we try and save as much ERS as possible for when we do need it. And you can see Stroll was actually attacking Ricciardo up ahead. Just got to make sure we're in that DRS zone though, because we are about 9 tenths or 8 tenths away from it. So trying to give it everything going into these corners, making sure you downshift very slowly, because that will ensure the car remains stable on the rear end. And now going to this last corner, absolutely love this last corner, but we don't do it that well on this occasion. Having to use first gear, which doesn't provide any extra rotation, but it's something that is a little bit of a habit, which doesn't gain you any time and just doesn't lose you any time either. But you can see we managed to get back in the DRS zone fairly okay, and now we get our second warning. So one more warning and we get a 3-second time penalty here. So going in third gear, this corner you can stay in third gear at times. Again, second gear doesn't really add any benefit. It's more of just really just a habit in the driving style. But you can see here now we're a bit closer in the DRS. We've got 3 laps of this race to go. Tyre wear isn't really ever an issue when you do a 25% race, but I'm just hoping now that these guys will not fight each other, because we are actually starting to catch signs. As you can see, Bottas is actually fully checked out up ahead here, but now these two are starting to fight, which is not what I want at all. I want these guys to be nice to each other so we don't lose that much time. And you can see we're going very, very out wide here. Just going a little touch too hot into the right-hander. But now these two are going side by side once again. And this is not helping me at all, because I really, really want to try and get a podium in this race here, because we were catching sides. And now I'm coming under attack from Albon. So I forced myself to get that inside of Ricciardo, who leaves me a lot of room, in fact. So that was actually very clean. No contact was made. And you can see the gap is now 2.5 seconds to Sainz, coming down because of that DRS here. So my goal was to try and save as much DRS as possible and then try and launch it on the last lap, or try and get within his DRS zone by the last lap at the very least, because you know how strong this AI is going down the straights, and you're about to see it coming off his long left. So you can see we're quite close to Stroll here. If this was online, I would be in a good position to overtake, but you could just see the speed that they get. It's just absolute hyper speed coming off this corner. So we're not going to use any of the ERS. We wouldn't have been able to overtake him anyway. And you can see that gap to Sainz is coming down. So we are closing in on him slowly but surely. Should use a little bit more curb for that right-hander, deciding not to use it again. And this is where the power of the straight line speed in the setup comes into play, because if we were using what most people typically use is 3/8 wings around here, then you wouldn't be able to save as much ERS and you would just be slower down the straights, because you can see here it's just the acceleration they get from the corners. It's just absolutely insane. I'd say it's definitely more the acceleration than the straight line speed here. But you can see that gap to Sainz has actually started to stabilise here. So I'm really going to need to get past Stroll on this lap, or the next lap that is coming up on lap 12. So you can see again, we haven't really made much time up on him whatsoever. So you can see he's going semi-defensive into this turn 1, which is definitely not what we want. It's coming off this corner, let's see how close we can get, but you can see the dirty air is now starting to come into a little bit of an effect. Going into lean mix, you'll probably notice with my fuel that I did that a lot. And the reason for that is I want to keep the engine as cool as I possibly can and give me slightly better traction. Because if you go in rich for too long, your engine will overcook and you will start to lose a little bit of percentage of the engine power that is available to you. So I'm using the overtake now. Should be a fairly easy move. You can see the gap has now come down to under 2 seconds. Spotting the braking point very nicely. Wanting to take a bit more curb here. Have to be very careful on this left-hander. But you can see the gap is now 1.7 seconds. Now it's coming down. Now we're using the power. And you can see the straight line speed. The benefit that we are starting to take. But we still need to make up half a second to get back within this DRS zone, but you can see this is where the car suffers. I'm trying to give it absolutely everything in this car, but quite often the AI do save up a good amount of ERS for the last lap that they can use and deploy. So we're going to start the lap with about 40% of the ERS, which is not too bad. First gear again, just trying to counter that understeers at 31.7 by Bottas. Let's see what kind of lap time we are doing. It's a 32.7, so we're about a second off the Mercedes AI pace here. You can see the gap is still about half a second between myself and Sainz, taking a little bit more risk going into this corner. You can see we have made up a bit more time. Going through this section, we'll definitely make up some time again. So just trying to throw the car, trying to hook it on the inside here like a scale electric. But you can see we're gaining a little bit of time, but you will see on the exit of how much speed that they will gain. So coming off this corner, we're going to use the overtake as well. But you can see the delta is just going up very, very quickly. 2 tenths off the exit of that corner here. And unless he has a mechanical failure, I think this is probably a position that we're going to settle in. But never say never. When I last did a race here, it was on the last corner of the last lap where I effectively broke down with a puncture. So we're going to still try and give everything we can. See it in single digits now for the ERS, and yeah, they are very, very fast. Well, not very fast, but I'd say they're just very, very hard to beat in this Williams. I think if this was in a Mercedes, it would have been pretty comfortable, since the lap time in the qualifying was a high 27. We normally do a high 26. And you can see Verstappen that responds with a 31.5 here. So we're going to come off the last corner. We're going to drain our ESS. Bottas then responds once again. Let's see what we can do, Karan Croissant. What's it going to be? It's going to be another 32. Yes, it is. But we gave it our best effort. Coming home P4 against the 110% AI in the Williams, using the setup that I would typically use. So I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know how the setup went if you did use it. I really hope you enjoy this weekend's Grand Prix and this video. And I will catch you very, very soon. Peace.